Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. The subject of the discourse today is the prerequisite for successful practice of meditation. To be successful in one's efforts in the practice of meditation, one has to fulfill certain requirements. And these are essential rules of conduct, and they must be understood properly to be able to meditate very successfully and for one's own spiritual benefit and for others' good. Now, what are these prerequisites of successful practice of meditation? Every game has ground rules. Without following the ground rules, you just can't have a good game, whether it's hockey or football or cricket or whatever it is. For a game to be a game, and to be successful and to enjoy it, one has to follow certain ground rules. The same principle applies to spiritual life. Spiritual life is not just an haphazard, kind of life that one takes up. It's a very methodical practice. It is based upon certain spiritual laws and rules of conduct. So, having that in mind, if we proceed with our spiritual efforts, whatever spiritual life we are trying to live, and we want to get some benefit out of it here and now, then follow the rules of virtuous conduct, Shila. Now, last time I mentioned a little bit about that. We spoke about contemplation on feelings. Feeling contemplation, Vedana Anusati, is a very, very skillful practice of meditation. And it requires very distinct discipline of conduct to be successful. Because the feelings ultimately are the source, they are the precursor for karma formations. A karma is committed, good or bad, and thereby one's destiny is created based upon feeling. So if we understand feeling, the importance of feeling, and then know how to moderate our feelings, how to bring about the element of restraint over feelings, it is only then when we know this, understand this, and practice feeling in a very skillful way, it is only then that spiritually we can be very successful in all our efforts. And whatever karma we commit, good or bad, those become very fruitful spiritually. So one should understand the importance of feelings, because it is through feeling that one commits a karma. And it is because of karma that one is again and again reborn, punarjanma. So in this wheel of life, or samsara, the most important thing that we have to understand is how we get involved in all kinds of karmas, karma formations, and then create our own destiny, and then to hide our own, weaknesses from ourselves. We try to create all kinds of theories that somebody else will save us, some supernatural power will come to our aid, and that will somehow or other will get out of it and all that sort of thing. No, it doesn't work that way at all. Spiritual life requires definite discipline based upon laws. A law is a law because it is autonomous. It works on its own. It doesn't depend upon anyone. It doesn't allow anyone to interfere with its course, nor does it work in an arbitrary way. So, spiritual laws are very definite laws. Law of karma and punarjanma is one such. Therefore, to be successful in one's spiritual practices, particularly meditative practices, it is very essential that we understand what we are practicing and why we are practicing, and what are the factors required to be successful in our practice. Just going and sitting down and close the eye and fake that you are meditating, it doesn't work. It doesn't help us at all spiritually. Showmanship is not what is required. Strict and sincere practice based upon knowledge and wisdom. So here, the importance of Vedana. Vedana is it is a faculty, Indriya, and it grows on Indriya. You see, a feeling arises in our sense faculties, eye, ear, nose, tongue, etc., and mind. Now these 6 faculties, that is where the feelings arise. So they have a double importance. First of all, they are Indriyas, that is to say, they are controlling faculties. They control the karmic process. And because they have that karmic controlling power over our actions and therefore our destinies, we have to take them very, very seriously indeed. And merely, mechanically saying, oh, this is good feeling, that bad feeling, this painful feeling, this agreeable feeling, and all that sort of thing, doing some kind of a drill, mental drill in the form of meditation, it will not work. It has to be workable and to be meaningful, we have to understand it and apply it in the proper way and get the very best result indeed. So now, while practicing this Vedana-nupassana, how step by step it leads to karmic formation should be understood. So it is said, yang vedeti tang sanjanati. Whatever one experiences, vedeti, or feels, or some sensation, whatever sensation one experiences, whatever feeling one experiences, yang kinchi vedeti, tang sanjanati. Based upon that, now one perceives that, one knows it, one has a notion about it and one builds memory based upon that. So whatever feeling occurs and you do something because of the feeling, then you also immediately create, this memory factor comes in. Whenever you remember it or when you want to remember it, you remember what you have done, what you have said or what you have thought, influenced by feeling. Influenced by feeling, You have done something, you have said something, and you have thought something. These are all karma formations. 3 ways of committing a karma. Now, having done these karmas, there the thing does not end. The mind has a tendency to recall them, to remember them. And that is memory. And that is called sanjanati. So now, whatever you feel and then trigger and karma formation as a result, that you pick up again in the form of memory. Now if you have committed, let us say you talk to somebody and then you get into an argument, and an argument leads to bad feelings and so forth. It goes on. So a mere argument, say, based upon a feeling, leads to a bad karma or the opposite, or a good karma, and you recall that. And every time you recall, every time you are committing the same karma. So repetition of karma, it is reduplication of the karmic process, creates a very powerful, it has a powerful role in forming our destiny. That is why they are called indriyas, controlling faculties. Feelings control our karmic process, and the karmic process controls our destiny in future. It's as simple as that, and therefore very deep and profound. We should take these things very, very seriously. So now, if you want to be really successful in having a control over your destiny, at least by having a control over what you do, say or think, then you have to, get into a discipline, a mode of training. Discipline is nothing but a mode of training. A mode of training whereby you begin to moderate your feelings and regulate them in a way that they become harmless. They don't become harmful. So to be able to do that successfully, you have got to do something else. And that something else is acquire that moral force, which is also an indriya. That moral force in the form of virtuous conduct. Now virtuous conduct, Shila, is absolutely necessary to be successful in training, in spiritual training or training the mind in a certain way. So, to illustrate how important Shila is in one's spiritual life and in one's destiny and in creating a destiny. Last time I did mention about the Dhtlk known as Mahadhammapala Dhtlk, which Bhagavan Buddha related to the king Suddhodana when he visited for the first time Kapilavatthu. So the king had invited the Buddha and 20,000 arahats who had accompanied the master. These arahats, 10,000 of them belonging to Magadha and 10,000 actually from Kapilavatthu itself. They were Sakyans. The king had sent parties of 1,000 people, all councillors, headed by a minister. So they went to invite the Buddha and saying, please come, your father is very unhappy, this thing, that thing, and so forth. So when they went to meet the Buddha in Rajagaha, all the way down from Kapilavatthu, now discourse, and they became spiritually transformed. And they took to spiritual life, they became bhikkhus, and they completely forgot about the whole story, whole mission of inviting the Buddha. This happened 10 times. That is how 10,000 Sakyans were all, they are all become arhats. They were there, and 10,000 from Magadha and Anga and other countries. 20,000 of them accompanied the master. They had gone on foot, walked for 2 months. They arrived at Kapilavatthu. They were very warmly welcomed and accommodated in the vana, in the grove, you see, of Nigrodha, the prince. And that is how they were there. Then the Sakyans didn't show their proper respect. So Buddha had to, tame them by performing certain very, very skillful and very subtle spiritual, the supernormal acts, you see. And they were so profoundly moved thereafter. Their argument was, oh, Siddhartha, he is younger to me in my age, how can I go and do namaste to him? That is how they thought. So they had to be tamed, and which the Bhagavan did most wonderfully indeed, leading to the king himself fell at his feet. So when the king did the Vandana, he worshipped, the whole lot of them did that. So then they were invited. The king had invited the Bhagavan for alms food. So that is how the Buddha had gone with these arhats, and they were seated in the palace in a huge alms meal performance and ceremony rather. So there the king offered the dana with all, great veneration and devout feelings. He offered, and after the Bhagavan had taken the meals, and all the arhats, they had washed their hands, and then the Bhagavan, invariably the Buddha gave a discourse after receiving an alms meal, a bhiksha. So the Buddha gave a discourse, and they were so very inspired indeed, the whole entire royal family and thousands of relatives had also come there. So this was a very poignant and very, atmosphere of great devotion and wonderful atmosphere, spiritual atmosphere indeed. There the king, after hearing the Dhamma, he said, Bhante, most venerable sir, I have something coming in my mind and I would like to share with you. He said, oh yes, Maharaja, please do, great king, please do, tell us. Then he said one day, suddenly, where they were seated, right there, a deva came hovering and he just stood suspended in the air, right in the middle of the hall, and said, King Suddhodana, I have a message. With all very dramatic way, this celestial being, he said, your son Siddhartha, practicing most fierce type of self-mortification in the name of penance, and he became just like a skeleton, totally exhausted and totally this, and he has now died. In a very dramatic fashion, this Deva said this. He belonged to the retinue of the Mara, so he had to do this kind of thing to sort of create confusion and dukkha in the mind of the king. So now the king said, look, I don't believe you one bit. My son can never die until he has climbed on the summit state of spiritual perfection and he has become a Buddha. Until then he can never die. I don't trust you. As soon as the king said this with all his own drama, in a dramatic fashion, that little creature just vanished. He disappeared forthwith. So when the king said this, the Buddha said, well, great king, did you believe him? He said, no, how can I believe him? I did not believe. I knew I was getting information from my security officers that you are going through tremendous suffering in the form of the self-mortification, but you didn't budge. And you did conquer. You did have victory over Mara. Victory over your own inward Mara of Klesha, mental defilements. Then the external Maras too. So that is how I had full information and I was fully convinced. So I didn't. Then the Buddha said, do you know Maharaja? This is not the first time you have done this. No? Have I not done this for the first time? He said, no. You have done it before. How come? The king was surprised. And then he says, will you please reveal, Venerable Sir, how it happened? Then Bhagavan said, all right, please listen, I will tell you the entire episode that occurred. So he says, at that time you are born in long in the dim past when I was practicing as a Bodhisattva. That is an enlightened being and would-be Buddha who is perfecting himself, training himself to become a Buddha. Long in the dim past, you were born near Varanasi, very in the vicinity of Varanasi. That whole area belonged to you. You are a very big Jamindar or something like a small Chota Raja, and a very powerful Brahmin teacher, as well as one of those Jamindar, landlord type. Small, some kind of a small principality you had, and you are very